Hey everyone, my name is Katarina Berry. I'm an empath. I'm currently challenging myself to create 30 videos in 30 days talking about different types of empaths, all of our special abilities, some of our challenges, how to connect all of this in a coherent, self-accepting type of outlook on life and how to apply it to the real world, survive and thrive in it. So today we're going to be talking about a certain type of psychic empath, and that type is the clairaudient empath. So the clairaudient empaths are empaths who have ability to hear messages, to connect with other realms, to get downloads, to get special understanding of situations or people through the heightened extra sense of hearing. And this can manifest in different ways. We're about to get into it in a second. If you want to check out the video that talks about all the 4 types of empaths, check out the link that should be showing up right above my head. And there are 3 other videos talking about the other 3 types of psychic empaths, and that will be in the description section down below. So one more thing before we get started: if you enjoy this type of content, if you're an empath, if someone you love, someone you're dating is an empath, if your child is an empath, or you're just kind of curious about the world of empaths, make sure to subscribe to this channel. I'm kind of new to YouTube, so this will mean the world to me, and that will guarantee that you're not gonna miss any of the videos that I'm making. Without further ado, let's get into all the 18 signs that you are a clairaudient empath. Now, I suggest that you stick to the very end of this video, because after we go over all the signs, I'm going to share some of my personal experiences with clairaudience as an empath. So if you're interested, make sure to stick around till the very end. Number 1, hearing people saying your name. You might be hearing this as something that comes externally, like someone really calling your name, or you might be hearing that internally. Number 2, ears ringing. You might be getting this kind of ringing in the ears, and usually comes at significant moments when maybe you're driving and you're kind of your mind is wandering a little bit. Maybe you are focused on something, focused on thinking about a problem, and your ears start ringing, or you might be thinking about someone and your ears start ringing. Usually it's a sign that there's a message that's trying to come through. Number 3, sensitive to loud noises. Usually clairaudient empaths are very sensitive to sounds in general. They have a deep appreciation for nice, calming, pleasing sounds. Sound is vibration, so it has a lot to do with our state of mind and the way that we act. So being in an environment with a lot of loud, chaotic music, chaotic sounds, lots of screaming, can make a clairaudient empath very uncomfortable. Number 4 is hearing TV, radio, or talking at a distance and not really knowing where it's coming from. It can be kind of like overhearing static, or overhearing voices, or overhearing like a television program or radio playing, and you're not sure where it's coming from or why you're hearing that, but that can often happen to clairaudient empaths. Number 5 is internal clairaudience, which is kind of like talking to yourself. So internal clairaudience might be having conversations with your guides or angels or your ancestors, and it's just kind of exchanging these thoughts with them, but it's perceived as if it was a conversation. You actually kind of hear their response. It sounds different from your own voice, but it's all happening inside your head, so you're not picking it up with your ears. It's more internal. Number 6 is hearing voices, whether internally or externally. Hearing voices can manifest as hearing them either talk to you directly, or just maybe saying, kind of like overhearing like bits of conversation, like picking up on some random phrases, or hearing some kind of voices at a distance when you're trying to fall asleep. This can manifest in a lot of different ways. Number 7 is hearing whispering around you. This can come pretty randomly at different times of the day. This can happen spontaneously, or this can happen when you're either more receptive, more meditative, or when you're stressed out facing a difficult situation, and you just are kind of hearing these whispers. Number 8 is hearing voices talking to you through technology. So this can manifest as hearing a voice address you through the radio or through television, or through some other form of technology, even like watching something on social media, or over the phone. You're talking to someone and all of a sudden you hear someone else's voice address you or tell you something that kind of rings a bell, or some phrase that kind of makes sense, and you're just not sure where it came from, but it wasn't from the person that you're talking to. Number 9 is hearing strange noises around you. This can be banging, or kind of shuffling, or kind of just different types of noises, all sorts of noises. This can be a sign that there's another spirit present, or another type of form of energetic being that is not seen, that is present. This kind of happens, can be related to haunting or haunted houses, and this can also be just being in an old place, in a historic place, where you can be exposed to some energies of those who are no longer around. Or this can just be a random occurrence, or this can do with the presence of a spirit or being around you. Number 10 is buzzing or ringing, coming from no source in particular. So in this case, this isn't ringing in your ears. This is just a sound of ringing or buzzing, or any kind of strange sound that you can't quite attribute to like a car or an airplane, that is maybe hard to even define because you can't attribute it to anything that you know that makes that sound. And this can again happen either spontaneously when you're alone, or when you're surrounded by people, or it can have something to do with what state you are in, or it can just kind of happen on its own, and you just happen to be sensitive enough to pick up that sound and to be aware of it. Number 11 is having your ears pop frequently, being very sensitive to air pressure, being very sensitive to changes in the atmosphere, and just having like this very responsive, very sensitive ears, and being able to feel these changes around you through the response of your ears. Some of the clairaudient empaths can also struggle with like flying on the planes, or even driving like through mountainous regions because of that popping, because of that high sensitivity to changes in pressure. It can be quite torturous, and sometimes it can even be painful. Number 12 is hearing things that other people can't hear. So this can be a variety of different things. You can be hearing noises, you can be hearing voices, but you can also be hearing like very high frequency sounds that other people just don't pick up. So example can be like if a TV is on, but it's turned on to like a DVR or whatever it is, where it's not showing anything, it's just waiting for another device to connect and to start playing something. So it's on, but it's not playing anything, but you hear that it's on. You hear this like very high-pitched staticky sound that other people just can't hear, and you can tell that the TV's on even though the screen might be black. So that's one of these. You can hear very high frequency sounds that insects make, that animals make, or sounds from very, very far away that again other people can't pick up just because of the high sensitivity of your ears. Number 13 is hearing muffled speaking that is not being addressed to you. So it's kind of just like hearing someone talk, but in a very quiet manner. And sometimes you might even get a sense that this is an actual conversation that's happening somewhere else, and it has nothing to do with you, and it's maybe very far away, maybe it's over the phone, you don't know the origin, but you just hear it. And if you kind of stay in this focus and you continue paying attention to it, you might continue hearing it. And the best way to explain that is you are just attuned to the vibration of the sound of that conversation, wherever it is, and your ears are sensitive enough to pick it up, or somehow you're able to set yourself to that frequency and stay in it. So it can be hard to explain, it can be quite random, but that's nonetheless another sign of a clairaudient empath. Number 14 is speaking words that are not yours. So this can manifest as, say, someone turns to you with a problem, or someone's very disturbed, distressed, something happened, or they are just desperate, or someone's sharing something that's extremely painful, and all of a sudden you just start saying things to them that are surprising you, because they're very profound. They sound like you know this person very well, and you know something that you don't actually know. So you're speaking to them, but from this perspective that you know you have nothing to do with. And this person is very surprised and kind of like lifted up and or transformed, and you're like, what am I saying? Like, where is this coming from? So this can be part of being a clairaudient empath, because what you're saying, you're in this, you might have been listening to this person with deep compassion, wondering, how can I help this person? What can I say to make them feel better? And so when you open your mouth and you start speaking, you're actually speaking words of some higher awareness, of some higher wisdom. That's not your ego, that's not your physical self that you identify with. It's coming from a deeper place that has a lot more knowledge, a lot more wisdom, a lot more awareness of what this other person needs to hear. And you're being receptive and kind and caring enough to be the channel of this information. But instead of hearing it, you're speaking it. So you're hearing yourself speaking it, and you're like, what is this stuff? Like, it sounds great, but I don't know why I would ever say this. Like, this is not my own thoughts. And in this case, this is part of your psychic clairaudient ability, is to be able to do this, and it can be extremely transformative and helpful to another person. And it's a great talent, but you have to be receptive and you have to come from the heart in order to practice this. This will come through you when you're able to receive it and to bring it out to help another person. So it's not necessarily making yourself do this. It's not coming from, I want to do this, so I'm gonna do this. It's more like you're just trying to help the best you can, and this can happen to you. Number 15 is hearing the course of action, hearing how to proceed. So you might be challenged, you might be struggling with a problem, and you just hear the solution. It's like someone gives you guidance and says, you have to go there and do this, or you have to sit down and be quiet and just journal, or to do any particular action, or to not take any action and just rest. And this may be coming as something that you've heard. So it's like you hear this, but it usually that type of clairaudience can manifest more internally. So it's like you hear this advice, but it's inside your head. So it's kind of like an instruction that you just got, like as if someone told you, but no one told you anything. You just got this instruction. It usually feels right to take it. Now, some can also hear it. Some can hear it externally, like you've heard a word, or you heard a phrase out of nowhere, and no one's there who's saying it, but it can be extremely helpful to what you're trying to do or the problem that you're trying to solve. So this is part of the clairaudient type of psychic experiences. Number 16 is having appreciation for music. A lot of clairaudient empaths are very sensitive to sounds, as I mentioned before. So they have appreciation for beautiful sounds, for magnificent sounds, for sounds that set them in the right frame of mind, that are healing, that are helpful, that are peaceful, that are calming, that are thrilling, all sorts of sounds. So they might be very put off or unsettled by loud, chaotic, aggressive, angry sporadic type of sounds, and that might really kind of mess with where they are mentally and emotionally. But with the beautiful music, with music that is the frequency of which is helpful to in terms of improving the state of the empath, they love that. They can be really into music. They can have a large library of different artists. They can have affinity for different genres of music, and they can really be kind of like experts in the music field. They can also be producing music. They can either be singers, or they can play an instrument, or they can produce music in other ways, or they can just have such a deep appreciation of music that they end up working with musicians or in the music industry because they're so passionate about that they want to surround themselves with the world of music and help and contribute to it in the way that they can. Number 17 is overhearing other people's thoughts. So this can happen when someone is sharing something that is, one type of thing, which is, a story that they're telling you, or they're just telling you what their day was like or how much they're appreciating the weather, but you hear their thoughts, and their thoughts are like, either it can be like, oh, I gotta go check on my cat, or I need to fill up on gas, or like something that comes up in the mind of the person you're talking to that they're not saying to you, that they're not verbalizing, but you just hear it as if they did say it, and that can be a little confusing sometimes. Or it can be kind of like when they're saying one thing but they're meaning another, like they're saying, oh, this dress looks great on you, but meanwhile they're thinking like, I wish I didn't run into her because I just don't feel like talking to her today. And you can just kind of hear it. You can hear the opposite thought. Or when they're telling one story and it's actually a lie, and meanwhile another thing is true entirely, and you hear that other true thing. So it can be unsettling, but it can also be very helpful in reading people and understanding exactly what their intentions are. But that can be confusing because sometimes you'll remember something that they said to you, which they never really actually said, and you can refer to it, and this can kind of confuse or freak out the person because they're like, I've never told you this, how do you know this? And you're like, yeah, you did tell me this. And then you're like, oh wait, I actually just heard your thoughts. So this can be quite a weird one. Finally, the last one is number 18, talking to imaginary friends. So this can relate to children and to adults that remember doing this as kids. When we're children, our imagination is a lot vaster than a lot of times the imagination we have as adults. So we are much more connected to who we truly are, to our truest expression. And so this can take place in the way of having imaginary friends and talking to them. And this can often be a little unsettling for the adults, for the parents. But if you are a parent and your child is an empath and you're watching this video, please be kind and be gentle and be very careful not to make this child feel like they're not normal, or this is not right, or this is crazy or anything like that, because it is normal. It's just part of their clairaudient ability. They're able to hear their imaginary friends talk to them. They're able to reply to their imaginary friends and have conversations with these friends. So these are all the 18 qualities of the clairaudient empath. Now I'm gonna share a few of the experiences, or rather the big experience. It's been only one that had this magnificence that I've had with clairaudience. So yes, I do hear ringing in my ears. Yes, I will hear occasionally either someone called my name, or I will get these messages from the spiritual guides that I work with, from angels, archangels, from the loved ones that are no longer on this planet. And this has been part of my experience throughout my whole entire life. I did converse with my imaginary friends. I did hear them talk to me, but as an adult, by far, the biggest clairaudient experience that I've ever had was when I was driving, and I was driving to a pretty significant type of engagement. It was my first big acting opportunity, and I was driving to get costumed for an HBO series, and I was really excited, and I was also nervous because I was like, what is this? How am I going to be capable of doing a good job? Is this for me? Am I really an actor now? And it was just a lot, and I felt all sorts of emotions driving. And while I'm driving, I'm listening to music, and it was on my Apple iTunes, so it wasn't a radio, so it wasn't like any frequency pickup, like my radio wasn't picking up on the radio station to where it could have switched to something else. No, it was like iTunes, so it was playing my playlist. It wasn't playing anything else. It was playing the songs that are downloaded onto my phone that I know very well. Right, so I'm driving, I'm listening to the songs that I know that are on my iTunes, and all of a sudden the song stops, like the little timer continues, like the seconds are like running on the song, but the song that I know stops, and like I don't hear it, and I'm like, what is going on? Like it's playing, but I don't hear it. So like I even tried to turn up the volume, and the volume went up, but there's still no sound. So I'm like, okay. I was driving down a busy highway, so I couldn't really mess with it too much. So I was like, well, whatever, this song will end and the next one will start playing. So I had to like pay attention to the road. So I tried to turn up the volume. It didn't do much. I didn't skip through the song. I was like, okay, it's gonna resolve itself in a few seconds. And all of a sudden I hear a voice, and I was like frozen. I knew I had to pay attention to the road. I was still driving kind of automatically. I've been driving since I was 15, so 11 years. I've been driving, actually probably 10 years, but that doesn't matter. I've been driving for a long time, so I know how to drive kind of almost like automatically. So I'm like making sure I'm not running into other cars and keeping the speed at whatever it's supposed to be. But I was like, otherwise I'm like just sitting there like, what is happening? And I hear this sound, this voice, and it's a deep voice. There's no mistake. It's not a song. There's no music. It's a voice, and it's talking to me. It didn't call me by name, but the words that it said was, rejoice, beautiful being of light. And yeah, I was like, what just happened? So that was my experience. That's what it said. And there was another part of this message. It went, rejoice, beautiful being of light, you're loved. And it was, it wasn't sad, but it was such an intense experience. It was unmistakable. It wasn't inside my head. I physically heard this voice. It was a deep voice. I knew the guide that was talking to me, because that's kind of who I was, the guide, the spiritual presence that I was referring to before in my meditation previously in that day, early in the morning before I even started driving. So I knew, I intuitively felt where it was coming from, like where this voice belonged. But it was such a incredible, unexplainable experience, and it was so physical. Like it like came through the speakers instead of any kind of song, and the song timer kept going on, but there was no sound other than this voice. And I just started crying. It was such an intense experience, and it was such a beautiful message. It was so uplifting and empowering, and I just knew I was on the right path. Driving there to this opportunity, even though I didn't really feel so sure of myself. I've never had anything like this happen to me, and it was so powerful. I still feel like it just happened like minutes ago. I can always remember it, but I've never had anything like this happen. I heard TVs when they were on, but they weren't like playing anything. Like I could pick up very high frequency sounds with my ears, but And I would get these messages like kind of internally. I could kind of hear muffled noises. A lot of these signs I've experienced, but I've never had anything speak to me so clearly through technology while it's technically still playing, but it's not. And it was such a beautiful, uplifting, incredible message, and it was so transformative. And I haven't really shared it with a lot of people because, you know, I feel like there can be a lot of judgment attached to this. But I've shared it with the people that I relate to spiritually, and I've received a lot of kind of excitement and support and understanding. So this isn't crazy. Like this was a real experience, and it was such a beautiful experience. But I just wanted to share this because this was my biggest clairaudient experience ever. So I hope this video was helpful to you guys. I hope you've been able to learn from it. If you want to check out all the other types of psychic empath, which are clairvoyant, clairsentient, and claircognizant, there is a video about each of them. And all these videos are also linked down below, so make sure to check them out. Now, these categories of psychic empaths are not mutually exclusive, so you might have several. I certainly do, and some might be more developed, some might be less developed, but check them out. See what you can relate to. On this note, I hope this video helped you guys. I hope it served you. I hope you've enjoyed my personal story, and I will see you guys in the next video. I love you all so very much. I hope you can feel my love. Bye.